Hi, and welcome to a Bouldersaurus special episode. You may notice I'm not at the gym. That's because I have an injury and can't climb. Great. Given that I'm stuck at home, I thought it would be interesting to make an episode of my last 4 years as a climber and look at how I progressed over that time. To add a little bit of context, I started climbing in the summer of 2017. I had my friend Kim visiting from Sweden. I needed an activity to do. I saw Bouldering World Cups on YouTube and thought it looked interesting. So went there on a whim, and it was love at first climb, or first boulder. Love at first smell of climbing shoes. No, that's weird. Love at first jug. Love at first handhold. Oh, that actually makes sense. What I'll do is dig up some old climbing clips and do some commentary over them, and hopefully you'll find it interesting to see another climber progress. I'm going to move over to my computer, and I'll see you after the title screen. Now that I'm at my desk, let's watch the first clip. And this is my first V2, the first clip of me climbing. This is about, I think, my third time I went, and let's see how I do. So first of all, I'm convinced that the V2s when I started were, like on that particular gym set, were a lot harder than they are now. I don't know what it was, but the V2s that I was climbing felt really hard at the time. Maybe it's because I had zero upper body strength. I was a little string bean. But I don't know, those are like little foot chips. Kind of sketchy. I don't know. So as you can see, I don't have any idea of what I'm doing. And I think that's just because I didn't know how to use my body yet. So you'll see a lot of like insecurity, a lot of feet bouncing, a lot of uncertain placement on foothold. So like there, I just opt for the default high foot, which, let's be honest, that's what I still do nowadays. And I remember once I got to this part, it just felt so hard. And I remember trying this one a good number of times, and I would just get so tired here. And you can see as I move up into this overhung section how uncomfortable I am on an overhang. Like I'm meat hooking that hold up there, I'm like just barely grasping this other one, and I just barely make it to the top of the wall. Like I remember I had to like put all my will into getting the top. So as you can see, I started off a pretty shaky, and this isn't even my first time climbing. I know people now that like their first day climbing, they're coming in and smashing V4s. Unreal. But yeah, that was my first V2. So speaking of firsts, this was my first V3 on the same day. And this is where I learned how to smear. Watch this crucial moment with my right foot. Bam. Blew my mind to learn that. I didn't know how to start this climb. I thought you had to start with both feet on footholds until one of the staff members came over and was like, no, you could just smush your foot there. I remember thinking that this was like a really intense climb because it had crimps on it. And I remember reading that like you shouldn't touch crimps so early. So I was very scared that I was going to hurt my fingers. This was a very easy V3, as you can see. I mean, the first climbs of your grade usually are. But I was so happy to get it in on video, because I think I did it before and then I like kept trying it and kept falling off. But as you can see already by my first climbs, I'm already building my love of slab. Man, I wish I had cool landings like I did there. This climb is just like a V1, but I think the reason that I put it in here is because this is like 2 months in, and it took me so long to get comfortable on overhanging routes. And this is shortly after I like really got the hang of flagging. And even though this isn't an impressive climb, I really am happy with the technique that I used here. This is around the time where I really stopped trying to chase grades and really tried to focus on the lower grades. So you can see I'm like flagging, I'm pulling my hips in. This was really good because around this time I think I already had a little finger injury and a little wrist injury. So this was when I was like, you know what, let me get my technique down and like start climbing well before I try to climb hard. And here is another one. This is a white V3, and this was like my first big project. Definitely not my style at the time. It had a lot of cutting feet. I could barely hold myself up without feet, so this was a big deal for me. And I remember even a few months in, my skin was just getting destroyed, and these jugs were very harsh on the skin. So I remember my just hands would hurt skin-wise, which would prevent me from doing this climb. But just like in the previous ones, I learned how to flag, and then I flagged way too much on everything. And I do a silly thing here where I put my foot on the wrong hold, but you know, doing that froggy leg position. But I remember getting this climb, I felt really, really happy. This is a mystery grade climb. You can leave the climb, leave it in the comments what grade you think it is. I'll reveal this in future videos. So, mystery grade, what could it be? I don't know. I hope I don't say it in my commentary. I included this video because this is where I really started to enjoy technical climbs. So as you can see here, this is a very technical, tricky climb, and this was my established cup of tea. I was much better at these sort of things with like flexibility and balance than the strength pieces. And as you can see with the finish for this climb, you have to do a really bouncy perch, which I still love. So this is where I was starting to get a sense of like what my climbing style would be. And my first dyno, this was like a little V3, and this was at the Randolph gym. And look at me campusing there. I remember I had a elbow injury at this point, which would like follow me for like 3 months. It was probably the worst thing ever. And I remember that climb, it hurt really bad, and I remember that specifically. This was from that same gym, CRG Randolph, and this was a comp set they had. And this is just an example of how my slab climbing was quite a bit further along than anything overhung or anything strength related. So this was a pretty tricky climb. It was basically just standing on those volumes. But oh my god, I remember this climb was my favorite thing ever. I climbed this probably like 5 or 6 times in that session. Yeah, and this has like some high feet, some press up moves. This was like my cup of tea. I felt really, really cool doing this one. Yeah, I missed this climb. This was great. The finish hold is that one way at the end. Look at me being a little stylish here. Starting to get that pizzazz going in my climbing. There we go. So this is a few months ahead. This is probably climbing for 8 months. And this is really where I first started to like feel good. Like feel really good about my climbing. So this particular climb, this was a V4. And I remember it felt really cool being able to start doing climbs that other people couldn't do. Like other people in the gym that I climbed with who were a lot better than me, and I was starting to catch up. So that was like a really cool feeling, because I did feel pretty weak for a while, especially since I kept getting injured from climbing too much. But this one, definitely a technical climb, suited my style well, had that cool rose move in the beginning. So I was really feeling strong at this point. This is another one too. So this was another V4. Not necessarily like harder than the other one, but definitely not in my style, and it's something that I worked at for a while. And this is where I started getting a bit more comfortable doing powerful moves. So as you can see, I'm cutting feet, which at the time, like I said, I still had a lot of trouble just holding myself up without feet. And I worked on this climb quite a bit and felt pretty strong coming out of it. So this is where I started feeling stronger. And then from this point, everything just sort of accelerated. This is about 1 year into climbing. This is when Kim came back to visit. And this was one of my first V6s. I don't have my first V5 on there. That happened maybe like 6 months in, but it took me I remember like really wanting to get a V6. And once I got one, I got like 5 of them within a week. It was really weird. I suddenly felt like I could do them all of a sudden, and I think I was just holding myself back from it. But this one I did it before it was graded, so I didn't know it was my first V6. And then I did another thing, which I thought was my first V6 like the next day, but then this one got graded. And once again, not the hardest climb ever, but I think the cool thing about this is I did my first V6, and maybe 2 months later I did my first V7, and then like 2 months later I did my first V8. So coming out of that first year, I think all the pieces were in place to really start progressing within the realm of indoor climbing, and however all over the place those grades are. But using my own gym as a benchmark, that was pretty impressive. Also around this time, I started getting more comfortable doing dynamic moves. My Warwick gym doesn't really set a lot of them, but this is the Framingham gym, and at this time with the head setter, basically every climb was some sort of dynamic. And if you know me and my climbing style, you can see how this sort of climb like was super, super cool for me. So this was a V5, and this was my flash attempt. I was really progressing quickly at this point, so climbing V6s into V7s and also flashing things that I probably couldn't do a few months earlier. You can also see that I'm wearing a sleeveless shirt, so you can like see my arms more, but I also felt like I was in a place where I was building more muscle, which when I started out, I was a little string bean, so I didn't really have much of the strength there at that time. Ooh, we'll do another mystery climb here. So this is a year and change in, and this climb just felt so cool. Like that move felt great, and that was my, I had like a really cool picture at that one that I used as like here's me climbing, look at my feet, they're over there. Definitely you can see I'm a lot more confident in my movements. Also have a new pair of shoes at this time too, which was great. I was not confident in my other shoes. And this is around the time, like I said too, I started doing more dynamic things. So here's a little compilation of some dynamic moves from the Framingham gym. These taught me how to be confident in dynamic moves, specifically how to use my feet to propel myself through them. So this whole climbing at this gym really taught me a lot that I wasn't quite getting at my other gym, but on the flip side, my home gym really taught me how to use really good technique and really good footwork. I specifically want to highlight this climb from that day. These were all filmed on the same day, but this climb probably is one of the best climbs I've ever climbed. It's so memorable, it's so cool. You're just using heel hooks up this arête, and there was just a lot of holds, but like not all of them were good, so you really had to decide what the good ones were. And I also flashed this climb too, which still at this time, still to today, I don't do as well with overhanging stuff, so I was really happy to flash this one. And we'll put this one as another mystery climb too. I don't think I've said the grade yet, but once again in the comments, let me know what you think it is. But the technique that was used in this one was just so cool. My hint is it's not as hard as it looked, at least from my opinion at the time. Ugh, I wish that climb was like reset so I could do it again. This is another V6, which at the time I was climbing a lot of V6s, but most of them were on slab. So this one's on the barrel at CRG Warwick, which is a really tough feature. It uses 2 knee bars. Oh, no, sorry, it could use 2 knee bars, but I just used 1. And this was really when I started getting more comfortable doing overhung climbs. Usually my grades on an overhanging wall were, and still pretty much are, 1 to 2 grades behind my slab climbing ability. So this one was one that I was just really proud of. This is the first, I think, V7 that I have on film. I've been climbing quite a few of them prior, but I remember this one I worked hard at. And this is really where, if I kept a whole spreadsheet of all my climbs at the time, which maybe I'll talk about in a different video, but looking back at it, a lot of the V7s and V8s that I climbed were crimps and slightly overhung. So this is just an example of one of those. This is also where I started like editing together videos. So this was not me editing this now, this was the original edit, but a friend of mine suggested that I started making like work in progress videos of climbs. It wouldn't be till a lot later that I started this channel though. I liked that climb. Oh my god, this climb. So this will be the next, I think this is the 4th, maybe? Mystery grade climb. Gosh, this climb, I think this is probably the climb that I put the most effort into figuring out. This was like the hardest climb to read ever, for me. And it was just so cool how hard it was to read. Once you got it, it was okay, but just figuring out what to do took so much time. There's so much intricacies on here, and there's barely anything to hold on to. It's just all volumes, and as you can see, I had the beta dialed at this point, but I still had no idea what I was doing. So you can see just you can see me like changing my plans, going through, remembering the little tiny steps. I remember once I got this double undercling here, the rest of the climb was pretty okay. But I wanted to put that one in just because that was just such an enigma, that climb. I don't think I've worked so hard to figure out beta than I did on that climb. That was awesome. So I mentioned before that I climbed my first V8 pretty easy. It was one of the softest things ever. This is my first V8 I have on film. Also, in my opinion, a very soft climb, or maybe just stylistic, but pretty soft for an 8. But it took me a lot longer to get consistently climbing V8s. Once I climbed my first 6, it was just like a new door open and I could just climb a bunch of them. Same thing happened with V7s. Once I climbed my first V7, I got 3 or 4 more in the next couple of weeks. It was interesting, but 8s took a longer time, and I think right now, at least in my gym's gradings, like 9s are still the area that I'm still working hard on to get consistently. This climb here, this white climb, I will do it as another mystery grade. So I'll say that this one's a little bit harder, but this climb I featured because this was another long-term project, and it's the climbs that you work really hard on that become memorable. And I remember, like, this is where, if you heard the audio, I do some power grunts in it, but this is really where I learned to like try hard and dig really deep. I'll show you the move specifically that I really had to throw myself at. It's actually this one right here. I gave a big like, and this climb had so many components to it. So there was the crimpy start, which you saw, the powerful middle, and then a really, really technical finish. So you can see me like twisting my body every which way to get through this finish. And you had to make sure you had enough energy. I would so often get to this point and then just get so tired out. But this climb felt really, really good to get. I was really happy with this one. And like I said, the more you work at it, the more memorable it is. Look at me go. This climb wasn't particularly hard. This is a white V6, but it had one of my favorite moves I've ever done. I don't know how many times I climbed it. It's like a cat slab campus. I don't know why. That move was so great. I love that move. I would just do laps on that climb. I felt so cool doing that part of that climb. What do we got next? So this climb is another memorable one. It was just super cool because it tangled you up like a pretzel. The reason that I included it is because for those of you who follow climbers professionally, Kai Leitner is a climber who often used to climb at this gym. He's off to college now, but I remember Kai Leitner took 2 tries on this climb, and that made me feel cool because he didn't flash it. Never mind the fact that it took me like 30 to get it, but it felt cool to do a climb that a professional climber didn't flash. So, you know, that's when I knew I reached the big time. So this series of videos was when I was feeling like really, really strong. I don't know what was going on, but I felt really good around this time. I was like injury free and just really having a lot of fun with technique and beta. So this was a V5, pretty easy one, but it had such cool movement. So as you can see, I kind of flipped upside down, and that climb was a lot of fun. It looks really easy because it's all jugs, but the movement that it forces was really interesting. And I think the next video is going to be the climb right next to it, where I got to use my wonderful mobility to conquer it. This will be another mystery grade climb. What do you think? Actually, no, we're not going to do it. This one's a weird one to read. This was, I think, a V7. Yeah, sorry. I spoiled the game. But I liked this because I'm toe hooking with my right foot and heel hooking over my face with my left. And whenever I can do that, like it's a lame climbing ability to just put your feet over your head. But whenever I can do it, I just feel extra little bit of special. Ooh, all right, this climb. So this was the one and only indoor V10 I have done. Before you say anything, yes, it's not a V10, but it was labeled V10, and that carries some sort of significance. So here you can see me working the crux. It wasn't that hard. It was a low-hanging fruit. It was set to my style. It's not the setter style. Everything aligned perfectly to get this low ball of a V10. The fact that I haven't done one since is a good testament to the fact that this was very soft. Maybe like a hard V8. Either way, I felt really cool. So this was my attempt that I got it. I was working on it really hard. Like I had to work for this climb. and this crux move was like really tough for me, and this end was really sketchy, but another part of the reason why it probably wasn't as hard as it was labeled is I remember I did it for the first time before this, and then 2 minutes later I did it again, which I feel like, you know, if I'm climbing my first V10, there's no way I'm gonna do it back to back. But that was a little special moment. Not deserved by any means, but you know, there we go. So big stretch of time because COVID happened, and on my first day back from climbing on June 1st from COVID, I dislocated my shoulder. So here's me returning from that, and I remember coming back from rehab, I saw this climb and I wanted to do it so bad, but that press at the beginning is very shouldery, and I was like, oh crap, I won't be able to do this. But I worked really hard at my physical therapy for my shoulder injury, and this was probably like 2 weeks coming back from rehab, and I was really happy to get this climb, which is like pressing, flexibility, small tiny crimps on the slab. My favorite, so much. So this was a cool moment of returning back from an injury, which I hope to be doing soon with my current terrible injury. This was an ungraded climb. I think the reason that I included it is it actually like looks hard and terrible, and it was, but this is probably a few months ago, and this one just had some of the craziest beta right here. This step through doesn't look like anything impressive, but it was so hard to figure out to do that. That foot chip was basically nothing, and you couldn't see it, but I just thought this climb was super cool, which is why I put it. And smearing up to the finish, also terrifying, but I loved it. There's a thunderstorm coming in. Uh-oh, better record quickly. And finally, we'll end with this one, which was another V10, me trying to get the second V10 send. This one I feel like was much harder than the other one I showed, and put a lot of work into this one, but it just kept getting harder and harder. And really, coming back from my current injury, a goal of mine is to start training. As you can, I'm plateaued pretty hard for the past couple years. I'm not complaining. My job is to just keep climbing and not get injured, LOL. But really my goal coming back is using it as an opportunity to start actually doing some climbing specific training to get stronger and hopefully progress more. So that's the end of those videos. Here's the outro. That's all for today's episode. Let me know in the comments if you found this interesting, or if you felt like you were taken hostage and forced to look at old photo albums that are just climbing videos shot from a phone. Also, if you're playing along with the Guess the Grade game, let me know in the comments as well, and on my next video I will reveal the answers and see who's closest. It'll probably be a few weeks to a month before I get back to climbing, but in the meantime, I'm thinking of doing a video on my injury, medial epicondylitis, also known as golfer's or climbing elbow, which is an injury you might, hopefully you don't, but you might and probably will get at some point. And I've learned a lot about the injury and how to rehab it properly. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the support and hope to be back to climbing soon. Bye.